Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Across the Park podcast. And it's that time of the week again. Well, I'll say that time of the week again. It's happened a few times this week. But it's we're here with the opposition podcast or the opposition preview. So this is where we bring in an opposition podcast or an opposition fan, and we discuss the ins and outs of our opponents and what we can expect in the upcoming fixture. So we've got the pleasure once again of having Joe from the Turfcast, which is a Burnley FC fan channel. We'll give you guys a plug as well at the end in terms of tags and everything. But for now, Joe, welcome.
Thank you, mate. It's good to be on. I'm looking forward to the game this weekend.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you've been in a pretty decent vein of form in comparison, I guess, to the season as a whole. Not the best time for us to be playing you for that reason, but we've just picked up a half-decent result ourselves, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin at last has got on the score sheet, so that is a huge boost for us in general. But again, we're here to talk about Burnley and what to expect from you guys. So to start with, Joe, I guess the first question, which is a wider question, if you were to be sat here at the start of the season, someone's to say to you, you are where you are in the table, this is how many points you've got, this is what has happened so far, would you be satisfied, disappointed, or otherwise?
Yeah, disappointed. I wasn't one of these Burnley fans screaming top 10, but I didn't think we'd be in this sort of danger. And I did kind of expect us to flirt with relegation, but I just thought eventually we'd pull away. I think I had us down for 14th. I had us down for a similar season to what Brentford are having, but they're kind of getting dragged into it a little bit now. But I expected us to be around that area, like looking over your shoulder a little bit, potentially getting dragged into it, but probably not really in any real danger. And then eventually we'll kick on. I expected us to have that season, and obviously, I'm sure we'll get into it, but if it wasn't for the points deductions for yourselves and Forest, we wouldn't be anywhere near. Like, we are within a very slim chance of staying up, thanks to the resurgence in form and thanks to the points deductions. But if it weren't for them, we'd be nowhere near. And we probably deserve to be nowhere near on the balance of the season. But as you said earlier then in your introduction, we have slowly started picking up a little bit, and we've given ourselves a very, very, very small chance. But I felt like the Forest win on Tuesday has kind of, it's deflated me a little bit, and it's probably left it a little bit too much for us now.
Yeah, no, and you know what, mate? When we recorded our last show, when we played yous away, I said as well that I expected you to do a lot better. We done I'm on another podcast where we do like a predicted Premier League table. I had yous down as being the surprise package and maybe finishing around 12, 13. So yeah, you're not the only one who was, I think, taken back a little bit by how long it's taken the team, the squad, the manager to adjust to the demands of the Premier League. Just before we move past the general feeling around the season, what is there any one thing you put it down to?
There's not one thing. There's a catalogue of errors, as I like to call it, because there's been quite a lot of mistakes by players, the manager, hierarchy with some of the signings that we've made. I didn't like the signings we made in the summer. I felt like Luton they've gone for experience when they're bringing in Bartley and Townsend, and you can tell that's why they are like. I feel harsh saying this, but I do find it pretty embarrassing that we are behind Luton in the league, and that's not a reflection on Luton.
No, I think
we finished 21 points above them last season, and then spent, not all up front, obviously, but spent £100 million on players in the summer, whereas they spent, genuinely, I think it was about £4.5 million. Yeah. But they went for experience, and what we've tried to do is buy the young, up-and-coming players that we will be able to sell on for profit. Yes, that might benefit us in 2-3 years, but this season, it's been detrimental, and we are slowly getting better now because some of these younger players have been dropped or they finally started finding some form. But yeah, I feel like the main one for me was the recruitment. And then the stubbornness of the manager. I feel like the fact that it's taken this long to drop James Trafford when pretty much every Burnley fan's been saying he should have been dropped since October is a joke. It's the same for other positions as well. Like, he's only just brought Cullen back into the side when he's been absolutely fantastic since coming in. It's just quite a few things that have gone wrong with the season, and probably if one of them didn't go wrong, we might be a few points better off. But I feel like the inexperience of the manager has shown, and the inexperience of the board has shown. But hopefully, they both learn from it.
Yeah, and I guess that hindsight's always a wonderful thing. But if you were to skip forward 2 seasons, for example, and you'd won the championship at a canter again, come back with a very similar squad to what you've seen now, but has got a squad that's got a year, 2 years experience, and you end up finishing the 12th, 13th that we were maybe predicting the first time round, it'd be vindicated, wouldn't it? But it's hard to look at it like that now when we're in the midst of a Premier League season, when you're staring down the barrel of relegation.
Yeah, and it's not only staring down the barrel as well. Like you said, if it weren't for the points deductions, we'd be nowhere near. There was talk of us being one of the worst ever Premier League sides ever at the start of the season. I mean, thankfully, I think we've come out the other side of that, and people agree that we're not even the worst side this season. Sheffield United are considerably worse than us. But yeah, it's difficult, and it's hard because I do try and talk about the project. And I know football fans hate hearing that word, but I do try and talk about that on the podcast, and it is that. But people don't like hearing it because football fans are very short-sighted. But a lot of the fans have started to get fed up with talk of that, and a lot of fans are starting to see the imminent relegation, and then the books have just come out, and they weren't amazing, but they weren't horrendous. But then obviously fans are then picking up on the negatives and stuff like that, and saying, "Oh well, relegation will mean this, that, and this, and that sort of thing." So yeah, it's not great, but that is the plan. It's to stick by Vincent Kompany despite all the noise from outside. Stick by him, hope that he learns from his mistakes, and I think he is starting to already, to be fair. And then when we come back up next season, well, the season after, hopefully, fingers crossed, we see the benefits of sticking by him rather than sacking him now and him going somewhere else, because somebody else will pick him up. I know he's had a bad season, but he was a great player. He did really well last season. So somebody else will pick him up. So if we stick by him, give him another year in the Championship, hopefully go up, then he's got the year behind him in the Prem, and hopefully we see the benefits from that. And like you said, it's not just him, it's the players as well.
Yeah, fair enough. One big question, which is normally the main thread of the show, so to speak, is particularly when we come around to the second time that we played a particular club. The last time we played, obviously, at Turf Moor, Everton come away with the points. What's changed since that last game?
Well, not too much up until recently. I've referenced it already, but Trafford's been dropped and Muric has been brought back in. Muric was the goalkeeper last season. He actually started last season quite slow, but came on and ended up being one of, if not the best keeper in the Championship last season. And he just gives us a different dynamic. Like, first of all, he comes and collects crosses. That's a massive plus because, as you saw at the Turf, Trafford doesn't. And he helps with that, and he's so good at distribution, and that's such a main part of how we play. Like, we want teams to come at us. We invite the press. Trafford couldn't do it, and he'd hold on to the ball for too long, thinking, well, I need to invite the press, but then he's doing it in the wrong moments, and then he'd never go long quickly. If the team was already pressed, he'd just hang on to it. Whereas Muric is so much better. So that's given us a different dynamic. And I'm not sure if he played at the Turf in the earlier game. He might have played at Goodison, but Josh Cullen's come back in the side as well. He's fantastic. He makes us tick, and that's another bit of Vincent Kompany's stubbornness that has left a lot of fans bemused. Like, yes, he was a bit poor at the start of the season, but who wasn't? Everyone in the Burnley shirt was pretty dreadful for the opening 12 games. We have slowly started getting better, but Cullen was ultimately dropped. I think he was dropped because he got suspended, to be fair, but he did get dropped, but then he was never brought back into the side. And the last 6 weeks, he's come back into the side, and he properly makes us tick. And that midfield too of Cullen and Sander Berge, it's actually a very decent midfield, and it can control games with controlling spells against Chelsea, controlling spells against Wolves, pretty much controlled the entire game apart from the last 15 against Brentford. So they're the main two different things. Like, the style is still the same. Like, there's been a lot of noise, people saying Kompany needs to change his style and stop being so open. Like, he still does the same thing. We're still playing the same way. It's just a different personnel, and we are getting a little bit better at it now. And obviously, there's a couple of January signings in there as well, in Esteve and Assignon, who Esteve is a brilliant defender, and Assignon's a very good fullback. So we are a better side from what we were earlier in the year. So I think we're going into this, the players, with more confidence than probably what your players are, because of the two runs are very different, and we are a better side now than what we were earlier in the season.
No, it's fair enough. And I think one thing that sticks to me when you look at your lineup from the game against Wolves, you got two forwards in there that are a real handful now. I'm not saying that, like, I know Foster was in and out of the team at the start of the season due to mental health, etc. Fofana's a young lad who's has come to the fore, I think it's fair to say, in the last couple of months. But they're two big units, aren't they? And they are, you pointed to the fact that Muric maybe is more more willing to go long quicker than what Trafford was. Is that a factor as well, that you can now really hurt teams in behind a lot more with two big men?
I think so, yeah. But that was the only time that we have ever started them two together. They were the first time that they started together. And it didn't actually work that well, to be fair. I think Fofana's hot and cold. Like, you probably saw the goal he scored against West Ham. Absolutely brilliant. 35 yards out, puts it in top bins. But then 7 days later against Brentford, he's missing from 3 yards out. That's the problem. He's raw, he's young, and he's raw. And he had one of his poorer games on Tuesday against Wolves. What I want to see with them two, because is, as you referenced, if you put them up front together, there will be a handful, because Lyle Foster was stuck out wide on the right. And he was just wasted out there. And he had a bit of an anonymous game. And then Fofana wasn't playing well in the striker role. And then for some reason, Fofana stayed on for the entire match and never came off, which bemused a lot of Burnley fans at the time. But what I'm hoping Company does on Saturday is starts them up front together. Go 4-4-2 or go 4-3, whatever. I don't care. Just put them. Don't waste Lyle on the right. Put them up front. Fofana's more of a Mexa runs into the box kind of forward. Will run on the last line of the defenders sort of guy, and have Lyle as like your deep lying centre forward, because he's got really good link up play, and that's what Fofana struggled with against Wolves. So hopefully Company's seen that, and I do think them two can work, as you referenced there. They are both big units, and they can work if they strike a partnership going. But it was the first time we played them. It didn't work because I felt like Company actually got it wrong. If he plays them up front, like I said, with maybe Fofana a little bit further forward than Foster coming deep, linking the play up, Fofana trying to get in behind and stuff like that, it might work. And I think we could cause you some problems if we get it right.
I guess that's probably only a little bit of a tweak, isn't it? Because if we're going to briefly go back to the, as you call it, stubbornness of Vincent Kompany, one of the stubbornness, I guess, is around sticking to a certain shape, isn't it? So whether it's 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, that seems to be the way that he prefers to go, as opposed to having two front men up there. But if you look at those two particular systems, if you put Lyle Foster at the top of the three in the middle, he's almost like a deep lying forward then, isn't he? He probably could play that role. It
could do, yeah. And like you said, it does like a 4-2-3-1 does Company. There's been a couple of instances of 4-4-2 when we are in possession, but it's normally it's quite a fluid. Like the possession, the formation changes depending on the possession with Company. But it probably would work if you have a 4-3-3, maybe Odebear and Fofana in the two, and Foster a little bit further forward, because Odebear is a very good player. He can cause problems as well. We do have some decent players. It's just not really clicked yet so far this season, but hopefully Company just makes that tweak this Saturday, because even your scouts, like if you've been watching this for the last few weeks, they won't know how to set up against that, because it's never happened before. It might not work. That's why Company might have seen it in training and thought that's not going to work, which should be fair enough. But yeah, I'd like to see it this weekend, because I know you're not as solid as you probably were at the start of the season, as Dyche teams normally are. You do concede some goals at the minute, so I'm hoping that if we get at you, we can hopefully score some goals, and then the Goodison crowd will get on the back, hopefully.
Yeah, look, that's always like to happen, and I know it's a cliche, but the first goal is just going to be so huge this weekend, particularly given, the fact that you guys are in a slightly better vein of form. You're carrying a little bit more confidence. You do get that first goal, I can see it being a very, very difficult afternoon. But likewise, I think if we do and the fans get behind the team and really make it difficult, it could be tough as well. Just to kind of finish off that segment, then and this is probably two questions. So you can tackle it however you wish. What you expect the lineup to be, what you hope it to be, somewhere in between.
We've settled on a lineup now, so I don't think there'll be too many changes. Obviously, Vitinho played at right back against Wolves on Tuesday because of Assagnon's suspension for that ridiculous decision at Chelsea. Assagnon will be back in the side now because it were only 2 yellows. So I would like to see Muric in net, Charlie Taylor left back, Assagnon right back, Esteve and Dara O'Shea in the middle, Sanderberg and Cullen in the middle of midfield, with Odebear on the left, and I would go Jakob Brun-Larsen on the right. Some people might want Vitinho there because he has done well when he's been a bit further forward, but obviously Jakob Brun-Larsen scored a great goal against Wolves, and he's been playing quite well recently. And up front, as I mentioned already, I'd have Foster and Fofana up front. I can't see that being too wrong, if I'm honest with you. I think if anything, it'll be a change of shape to like a 4-5-1 or something, or maybe a 4-3-2-1. but I can't see it being too different to that. The only difference that he might make is have Vitinho at right mid rather than JBL, and then potentially not start them both against you guys up front, which I think he should do. But yeah, it's always interesting. There's always a random surprise in a team selection from Vincent Kompany, so we'll see what he does this weekend.
Just briefly back to it only made me think when you started going through the back line. You've obviously spoken about Muric being the biggest change, I guess, in the way you defend and the way you play out. Have the defense generally performed well as defenders, or has it been a case of we've got better and better? What's been the verdict on the general back four, if you like?
At the start of the season, it was poor. There was a lot of players making a lot of mistakes. Darver O'Shea still likes him. Darver O'Shea is a very weird anomaly of a footballer because he's good for like 89 minutes in a match, but then he makes a stupid mistake and ruins the entire thing. He did it against Wolves at the weekend. That was just a stupid back pass. Thankfully, they didn't score from it, so it's not highlighted, but he is getting better. So defensively, like I think I went to the game at Goodison earlier in the year, and obviously I was at Turf Moor when you beat us there. And we were so bad defensively in both of them games. Like you just pump the ball in the box like a typical Dyche side would, and we just knew we would capitulate, and we did in both games. I think if you do that this game, we will be a lot stronger because we are better in the air now. Esteve didn't play in any of them 2 games because he didn't play for Burnley then. He's coming in January, and he's good in the air and he's decent. Darver O'Shea is getting better in the air, and Muric as well. He's a massive part of it. And even recently, though, we have been playing better at the back since the introduction of Assignon and Esteve, and since Darver O'Shea has been slightly getting better. But the difference since Muric has come in is tenfold. But having said that, we did concede a set piece on Tuesday against Wolves. So the weaknesses are obviously still there, and that's what this game. That's why I'm worried about this game, because yes, your confidence will be down. Yes, you've not won since when you played us November, which is scandalous for us.
We've not really won, but we haven't won since that result at Turf Moor. That was the last time we won.
That's mad. So if you win this weekend, you'll have gone on the worst run, one of the worst runs in the history of Everton, and between it is 2 wins against Burnley. That would just be typical.
Well, yeah, I was just looking back to see if that cup game. Well, I think if you include the cup game, I think you will have been again. Assuming we get a result this weekend and beat us this weekend, 3 of our last 5 victories would have been against you.
That's scandalous on our point of view, isn't it? But
yeah,
it's just difficult. We are better. That's what I would get. We are better than what we were back then, and I think the results are showing that. We've introduced new players. Assignon, Esteve, Muric is kind of new. Cullen, I don't think played in any of them games. So we will be a lot stronger, but our weak point is still set pieces, and I still look at you as a threat with set pieces, despite the run that you've been on.
Yeah, we're a big team, and I've got no doubt that that's going to be our best chance of hitting you at the weekend. But listen, Joe, we are going to jump across to Joe's channel and do a preview where kind of the shoes on the other foot. But again, for any Burnley fans that's watching this via our channel, obviously I'm pretty sure you'll have heard of Turfcast, but the tag on Twitter is Turfcast Podcast. Is that the same for YouTube as well?
Yeah, I think if you just search Turfcast on YouTube, it does come up. But yeah, I think I dropped the word podcast on YouTube because it's more of a fan channel on YouTube, isn't it, rather than a podcast? But yeah, if you search Turfcast, it comes up.
That's it. Well, you'll be tagged into this episode anyway, so you can just click the link below. Please give them a follow. But yeah, Joe, thanks a lot for your time, mate. And as I say to all of our opposition guests, best of luck after this weekend.
Yeah, I say the same thing, mate. So I'll give you that back in about half an hour.
Top man. Cheers, Joe.
Cheers, mate.